everybody, welcome to Stamping with Melva. I'm Melva Peters and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in British Columbia, Canada. And you can find me online at stampingwithmelva.com. And today I wanted to share how I made the really adorable, well I think adorable, card that I shared as part of Festive Friday challenges today. So our challenge was around Grandparents' Day. And so I decided to use the Yeti to Party stamp set and the new coordinating dies that you will be able to get starting in September. So Stampin' Up! Is bringing out 6 new dies that coordinate with stamp sets from either the annual or the July to December mini catalog. And the promotion is called Perfect Partners. And so these are the perfect partner to the Yeti, Get Yeti, or Yeti to Party stamp set. So these Yeti dies are just so much fun. They don't have to be just for Christmas. So that's kind of my tagline for the month of September, I guess in part of August. A Yeti isn't just for Christmas. And this card maybe is a Valentine's Day, definitely could be a Grandparents' Day. It's got hugs on it. It's got a heart on it. So as part of the challenge, every Festive Friday challenge, we're given an inspiration list with 10 items on it. And we need to choose at least 3 items. And we challenge you to pick 3 items from the inspiration list and share a card. So here's the items: plaid, fancy fold, hugs, pearls, buttons, sweets or candy, spectacles, hearts, knitting, or lace. So I chose hugs, hearts, and pearls for mine. I thought I had chosen candy, but I changed my mind. So I actually have hugs, pearls, and hearts on mine. So let me switch over to my desktop and I'll show you how I made this kind of a little bit of a variation on a spanner fold card. So first of all, this is the card. Isn't this cute? This Yeti is just so adorable. So typically a spanner fold would have the piece, the kind of the bridge piece going across, and this piece would be underneath. But in this case, I wanted to have the Yeti in the window. So this one folds up, then the Yeti folds up, and now you've got your place to write your note on the inside. So I've used Sweet Sorbet, and this is the paper from the Sweetest Candy Canes designer series paper. Some of the Sweet Sorbet twine that comes in the In Color Baker's Twine pack. Some of these heart pearls. So it's got pearls and hearts. So it's got a heart. And I've colored, and I don't know that you can see, I colored it with, oh, there you go, a little bit of Wink of Stella. So just so it's got some sparkle to it. Okay. This is the Yeti to Party stamp set. Isn't he adorable? Gosh, I think he's so cute. Without the dies, he's cute. And some great sentiments. So even birthday. So this doesn't have to be just kind of for Christmas or holiday, winter holidays. And then these amazing dies. I will be sharing more cards as we go. I'm using this one, which is kind of a window, or it could be an igloo. Lots of little shapes, mountains, banners, all these little shapes that stamps can be now cut out. And I'm using the heart and the Yeti, or a Sasquatch, I guess. Could be that, could be whatever you call it. I think there's other names around the world. And I'm using the bricks and mortar embossing folder for my kind of window. Let's bring in my supplies. So first of all, I've got a card base. Again, I'm using Sweet Sorbet. Trying to get my stuff out of my way. So this is cut 5.5 by 8.5. We're going to score it at 4 1/4. And now we're going to turn it. And so we want the front. So if I folded this is the way it's going to be front. This is the fold. We're going to cut from 1 1/4 and 4 1/4 from the bottom edge to the score line. So if I put it in like this, I'm going to cut this at 1 1/4 to, and this is the score line is at 4 1/4. So you're going to cut up to 4 1/4, and then you're going to move it along and do exactly the same. So this is now at 4 1/4. We're going to cut up to 4 1/4, or the score line. And this, move that out of the way, now creates our kind of spanner part of the card. All right, I'm just going to take and fold this. All right, should have probably done this first. So I always say fold into the mountain. Probably should have folded this first before I did that cutting. Makes it easier, but that's okay. So always fold into the raised line or the mountain. There's my card base. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut 4 pieces of designer series paper. Again, this is from the sweetest candy cane, or sweet candy cane, sweetest Christmas bundle, or sweet. So I've got 4 pieces. So 2 are going to go on the front, 2 are going to go on the inside, and then I've got a piece of window sheet that I've cut. I believe I cut this, 1 inch by 5 1/4. So this is going to attach our 2 side pieces. So before we do any of that, we're going to cut the front. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take this window die, what I'm calling a window die, and I'm going to cut that hole. And I'm going to use just a little piece of Post-it note tape to hold this straight so it doesn't shift on me. And I'm just going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Pieces out of the way. All right, so I've got my plate number 2, actually my 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put this like that so we don't cut through. We only want to cut through 1 layer, and we're going to run this. I find, so I'm going to emboss this after I get it cut. I find that I want to cut it first and then emboss it, because if you emboss first and then cut, it tends to flatten the embossing, and I don't want that to happen. So there we go. So now I'm going to take and use my, this is, as I said, this is the bricks and mortar embossing folder. So we're going to take, and all we're going to do is emboss the front, not the banner, just that front. So put your piece in. So the only paper that is in my embossing folder is this front panel with this window opening in it. Take those 2 plates out, because with this you only need plate 1 and 4. And so we'll run this through. Something's not happening here. So I got an extra plate in here. Let's run it through like this. So it does, they do recommend that you run it through with either the opening or the fold of the embossing folder. And I think that was what was going on. It was very stiff. It's also because I've got quite a bit of paper here. There's more layers. I'm going to need this in a minute. There we go. So now I've got my embossing done. Now, if you want to make these kind of show a little bit more than they do, you could take and actually do some sponging with sweet sorbet or another color. I'm not going to do that, but it would make those bricks just stand out a little bit more. Okay, so now let's start putting our spanner, our card together. The first thing you want to do, now this flap needs to fold up because this is going to be on the front. We want to adhere this piece of window sheet down. Now I'm going to use tear and tape adhesive. It just kind of holds it, and I can actually see it a little better because it's got the white backing on it. So I'm just taking just a little piece of tear and tape adhesive. So this piece was 1 inch by 5 1/4. The edges are going to be hidden with the designer series paper. Let's get my piercing tool underneath. There we go. So you can decide where you want this to go. I have it fairly close to the bottom, so maybe a quarter of an inch from the bottom, so that the Yeti will show through the window. So if you're not sure where to put it, maybe stamp your Yeti first, so you know how big it is and where your window sheets should be positioned. Now you can put your designer series paper. These are 1 inch by 4 inches. You can put these over top, and they will hide that adhesive I used to adhere my window sheet down. Okay. So now the Yeti is going to be actually adhered just to this window sheet. So I've cut out 2 more pieces of designer series paper, and these are going to be for the inside of the card. You could use all white if you wanted to, just a piece of basic white that is 4 inches by 5 1/4. But I kind of like the look of the designer series paper on the inside as well. So these are just going to go on the edge. And now I've got a piece of basic white that I cut 3 inches by 4 inches. And this will go between my 2 pieces of designer series paper. Now, if I didn't mention this, the written instructions and measurements and supply list for this card will be, there will be a link to my blog, and so you will find all of that information on my blog, in case you haven't got them as I was going through. Okay, so there's our card. Now it's just a matter of doing some stamping and cutting of the Yeti and the heart and the sentiment. So I'm going to stamp my Yeti in basic or tuxedo black. Now, when I have a big stamp like this, I tend to stamp from the top or apply the ink from the top. I just find it. And this is photopolymer, so make sure you're using something, a padding underneath. I have grid paper, a pad of grid paper. If you don't have a pad of grid paper, then use a piercing mat or something under it. You'll get a much better stamp. Okay, and then I also want to stamp my heart. I realized I missed bringing over my sweet sorbet. My sweet sorbet Stampin' blend so that I can color my heart. Okay, and then the last thing I want to stamp is the sentiment. So I'm going to stamp that in sweet sorbet. And I'm actually going to cut. I'm just going to cut this because I love cutting these sentiments up. You don't have to. That way you can use your sentiment for way more than what it was intended for. So I'm going to cut the holiday off and not use it. So we will cut out the Yeti. Now, one of the really cool things, I'm going to use some Post-it note tape to hold this in place. One of the really cool things about these, besides all of the dies that you get to cut these little pieces out, is this die. And you may wonder what it's for. Actually, I need to move my Post-it note tape. Let's put it up there. So this actually fits over this arm. And what it does is it cuts a slit at the top of the arm so that you can tuck things in. So I'm going to cut out my heart and tuck the heart in the arm. It's very cool. All right, so let's bring back my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and cut these pieces out. So this time I need plates 1, 2, and 3, and an extra 3 to go on top. Oopsie, hit my light. There we go. Okay. Take my Post-it note tape off. You could use Post-it notes, washi tape, whatever. I just find this Post-it note tape works really well to hold things in place as you're die cutting. And it can be reused, so I always just save it. Kind of stuck over here on my light. Okay, so we've got my Yeti. So I don't know if you can see, there's this little slit here in the top of the arm. So my heart is just going to tuck in there. So we're going to do some coloring. I'm going to color my heart in the dark of the Sweet Sorbet blends. You could use the Stampin' Right marker or the blends. You could do some blending on this and coloring if you wanted to start with a light, but it's kind of a small image, so I'm really just going to color it. Now, I'm going to do the face of the Yeti in, now this is the light, this is one of the natural tone blends, and I'm just going to do the Yeti's face in this really kind of pinky color. You could use the pale pink or petal pink. What am I talking about? Petal pink blends if you have that, or a Stampin' Right marker. But I'm gonna keep my Yeti white, and I'm going to just color his face. Right. So what we're gonna do now is we want to position the Yeti so that you can see him in the window. And I just used Stampin' Seal. And so I'm only putting Stampin' Seal on his legs because that's the only part that is going to be stuck to the banner or to this banner fold. And I'm going to just make sure that he's positioned where I want him. There we go. And so now this piece is adhered together. We've got our Yeti. And the last thing we want to do is tuck this inside. Now I'm going to use a dimensional to kind of hold this in place and to pop it up a little bit as I poke it in. So it's going to tuck down into this and then kind of be popped up a little bit. Okay. I have some of this is the Baker's Twine. This is the Sweet Sorbet Baker's Twine that is part of the collection of all the In Colors of Baker's Twine. So I'm just going to wrap this around a couple of times here at the bottom. And make sure I've got enough so I can tie a bow. Bring this back in. There we go. Get it on straight. Be a good thing. Okay. And then we'll just trim. You could tie your bow without cutting it, but I seem to have gotten it awkwardly positioned. So I'm just going to tie a bow. So I wrapped it around twice, and now tie the bow somewhere. There we go. And take and position this. You could use a glue dot if you want to hold this in position. We'll see how it goes. Depends on how loose I get it. No, it's not too bad. So I'm just going to trim this. I don't think it needs a glue dot. All right, now somewhere I had already stamped this. So I'm just take my paper snips and I'm going to cut carefully the hugs. That's all I want to use from this sentiment. It's always fun to make your sentiments do more than what they were intended to do. So I'm going to use some mini dimensionals. If I can find my mini dimensionals, here they are. And my take your pick tool. So I'm using mini dimensionals, just a couple of them. And I'll just put the hugs right there. And then, excuse me, the last thing I'm going to use are these amazing heart pearls, because that's the last thing. I've got my heart and I've got my hugs. What else was I? And now I need some pearls. So we will just take and put some of these amazing heart pearls. Let's get them so they look like a heart, going in the right direction. They are in two sizes, but I'm going to use the larger ones because there we go. All right, so there is your Yeti card for Grandparents' Day. Could be for Valentine's Day, but just such a fun card. Like I said, a Yeti doesn't have to just be for Christmas. All right. So as I said, all of the written instructions, measurements, and supply lists for my card will be on my blog, and the link to my blog is under this video. So hop out there and check out. You can get to the links for all of the other projects that were made for Grandparents' Day. So take a look and comment. We always love your comments on our blog posts. So you'll find all the information about the card there. If you want to share your cards that you made, I love to see them. So you can join my Facebook group, and that information is also underneath my video. You can join my Facebook group and share your cards. I love to see what you're creating. And every month I send out some happy mail to a few people who've shared cards over the course of the month. So maybe you'll be one of those. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you have a great day. Happy stamping. Bye.